My brother stood up at Christmas dinner in front of our entire family and announced that I had no rights to the company our father built, not realizing I had forensic accounting evidence of 3 years of embezzlement in a folder I was about to place on the table. My brother Ryan had been drinking since 2 p.m. It was Christmas Eve at my parents' house in Portland, and by the time we'd finished appetizers, Ryan was already on his third bourbon. By the time we sat down to dinner, he was the kind of drunk that makes everything feel like a performance. His voice was louder, his gestures were broader, and his opinions had calcified into absolute truths. "I've been thinking about the company," he announced, standing up mid-dinner. The entire family turned to look at him. 23 people. Our parents, our extended family, spouses, kids. All watching Ryan stand up in his perfectly tailored Nordstrom suit and make an announcement like he'd just had a revelation. "Peterson Properties needs a new direction," he continued, swaying slightly. "And I've decided that direction is going to be led by me. Me alone. No interference. No complications. Just me." He looked directly at me. Angela Peterson. 31 years old. VP of Operations at Peterson Properties. The person who'd been keeping that company solvent for the past 6 years while Ryan had been systematically draining it. "Angela," he said, and his voice had taken on that particular edge that meant he was about to say something cruel. "You no longer have any claim to this company. Dad built it with me in mind. Not with you in mind. I'm taking full control of the board. I'm taking full control of the company. And I'm cutting you out. Completely." The room went silent. Then, one by one, people started nodding. My mother looked sad but unsurprised. My father looked confused. And my cousins and aunts and uncles looked like they were watching a particularly dramatic reality television show. "Ryan is the CEO," my aunt said approvingly. "Of course he should have full control." "I never understood why Angela had so much authority anyway," my cousin Marcus added. "She's competent, sure, but Ryan's the real visionary." Nobody stood up for me. Not a single person. I'd spent 6 years making their quarterly investments profitable. 6 years keeping Peterson Properties afloat through the recession. 6 years showing up for work and actually doing the work while Ryan took credit and threw lavish client dinners and traveled to conferences that had nothing to do with our business model. And not a single person stood up for me. I sat at that table, and I smiled. It was a small smile. A private smile. The smile of someone who knows something everyone else in the room is about to find out. I had spent 6 months preparing for this exact moment. 6 months of hiring a forensic accountant named Martin. 6 months of collecting bank statements and wire transfer confirmations. 6 months of tracing shell companies and tracking credit card receipts. 6 months of documentation that proved, beyond any shadow of a doubt, exactly what my brother had been doing. The thing about theft is that it always leaves a paper trail. You can be clever. You can use shell companies and fake invoices and careful timing. But eventually, the money has to go somewhere. And once it does, the trail becomes visible to anyone with access to the financial records and the expertise to read them. I had that access. And I had hired someone with that expertise. "In that case, Ryan," I said quietly, standing up from my seat, "you won't be needing this." I pulled a folder from my bag. A thick folder. A folder containing 6 months of forensic accounting work. A folder containing bank statements and wire transfer confirmations and credit card receipts and shell company registrations. A folder containing evidence that my brother had stolen $2.4 million from Peterson Properties over the past 3 years. I set that folder on the table. The room's energy changed. It was subtle but immediate. The drunk indignation that had been filling the space disappeared. It was replaced with uncertainty. With the sense that something important was about to happen. The room went absolutely silent. "What is that?" my mother asked, her voice small. "That," I said calmly, "is documentation of my brother's embezzlement. 3 years of systematic theft from the company my father built. All of it documented. All of it traceable. All of it prosecutable." Ryan's face went white. Actually white. Like someone had drained all the blood from his head simultaneously. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said, but his voice was shaking. "You transferred $1.2 million to a shell company called Meridian Creative Solutions," I continued, my voice steady and clear. "You claimed it was a consulting firm, but it doesn't exist. You pocketed that money. That's not. You spent $340,000 on a personal yacht that you charged to the company as client entertainment," I said. "You spent $210,000 on a family vacation to Fiji that you labeled business travel. You spent $180,000 on your children's private school tuition and charged it to Peterson Properties as employee benefits." Ryan tried to interrupt, but I kept going. "You opened credit cards in the company's name and ran up $450,000 in personal expenses. You paid yourself bonuses that weren't approved by the board. You wired money to accounts in the Cayman Islands. You created fake invoices from vendors that don't exist. She's lying, Ryan said desperately. She's just a disgruntled employee trying to bring me down. I'm not a disgruntled employee, I said. I'm the VP of operations. Which means I have access to all the company's financial records. Which is how I discovered your crimes. My father's face had transformed. From confused to understanding to absolutely devastated. Ryan, he asked, his voice breaking. Is this true? Dad, she's twisting things. The accounting is complicated. There are receipts for everything. I have the receipts, I said. I opened the folder. I started pulling out documents. Bank statements. Wire transfer confirmations. Credit card statements. Vendor invoices with Ryan's signature. I have all of it. My forensic accountant has verified every single transaction. This is not complicated accounting. This is theft. My mother made a sound like a small animal in pain. How much? My father asked, his voice barely a whisper. $2.4 million, I said. $2.4 million stolen from the company in 3 years. The company that took my father 40 years to build. My cousin Marcus, the one who'd said I wasn't the real visionary, was now staring at Ryan with contempt. I'm calling my lawyer, I said. And then I'm calling the police. And then I'm going to ensure that my brother faces charges for embezzlement, fraud, and theft. Angela, wait, Ryan said, and now he was crying. Actually crying. We can work this out. This is family. Family doesn't steal from family, I said. Family doesn't spend 3 years draining the company your father built. Family doesn't stand up at Christmas dinner and try to cut out their sibling to cover up their crimes. I looked at my father. Dad, I'm taking operational control of Peterson Properties immediately. I'm convening an emergency board meeting tomorrow morning. And I'm having Ryan's access to company assets frozen pending the criminal investigation. My father nodded. He looked like he was about to cry, but he nodded. I called my lawyer that night. Patricia, my corporate attorney, listened to everything. The embezzlement. The documentation. The Christmas dinner announcement. The family's response. This is a federal crime, she said. We need to file a report with the FBI's white-collar crime division immediately. I want him prosecuted, I said. I want him to face consequences. He will, Patricia said. This level of theft? This documentation? He's going to prison. The FBI investigation took 8 months. It was thorough. It was professional. It was devastating. They confirmed every single transaction. They traced the shell companies. They interviewed vendors and credit card companies and bank officials. They built a case that was airtight. Here's what they found. The Meridian Creative Solutions shell company had been created specifically to receive embezzled funds. Ryan had transferred $1.2 million to that company over 3 years. The company had no actual business purpose. It had no employees. It had no clients. It existed only to launder stolen money. The yacht, a 42-foot Sea Ray, had been purchased with company funds and registered to a holding company that Ryan controlled. He claimed it was for client entertainment, but the boat's logs showed it was used exclusively for personal vacations. The company had spent $47,000 annually on maintenance and mooring fees. Ryan had spent approximately $200,000 using it for personal family trips. The Fiji vacation was just one of 6 international business trips that were actually personal vacations. Ryan had taken his wife and 3 children. He'd rented luxury villas. He'd billed all of it to Peterson Properties. The private school tuition for his children was charged as employee benefits even though the benefit only applied to his children. It was $180,000 per year for 3 years, $540,000 total. The credit cards were the most egregious. Ryan had opened 4 different credit cards in the company's name. He'd used them for personal expenses, restaurants, clothing, jewelry, electronics. $450,000 in charges over 3 years. Most of it personal consumption that had absolutely nothing to do with business operations. The Cayman Islands accounts were where he was trying to hide the money. He'd opened 3 accounts and transferred $800,000 total. He'd been slowly moving money out of the country, probably planning to flee at some point. All of it documented. All of it traceable. All of it prosecutable. He hired a lawyer. An expensive lawyer. A lawyer who tried to argue that the transactions were technically authorized or standard practice in the industry or misunderstood accounting procedures. None of it worked. The evidence was too clear. The theft was too systematic. The documentation was too thorough. Ryan pleaded guilty to all counts. He received a sentence of 5 years in federal prison. He was ordered to repay $2.4 million plus penalties and interest. He's currently serving his sentence at a federal facility in Oregon. My father didn't speak to Ryan for the entire 8-month investigation. He barely spoke to me either, but not because he blamed me. He spoke to me less because he was devastated. Devastated that the son he'd trusted with the company had stolen from it. Devastated that his life's work had been compromised. Devastated that his family had fallen apart. When the indictment came down, my father actually cried. Not for Ryan, though there was some of that, some sadness about losing a son to his own choices. But mostly he cried for what had been lost. The trust. The expectation that the company would be carried forward by the next generation. The belief that family loyalty meant something. I built that company from nothing, he told me during the investigation. I built it so that you and your brother would have something to inherit. And he was destroying it. He was literally stealing from us to support a lifestyle that has nothing to do with hard work or values or anything our family represents. My father's relationship with my brother became a formality after the indictment. Ryan was convicted in federal court. Ryan was sentenced to 5 years. Ryan went to prison. And my father grieved the loss of his son even though Ryan was still alive. By the time Ryan was sentencing, my father was actually grateful to me for stopping it. If you hadn't discovered this, he said, he would have eventually destroyed the company completely. He would have destroyed our family's legacy. He would have done irreparable damage that we couldn't recover from. I know, I said. I'm sorry I didn't believe you initially. At Christmas. I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you when Ryan attacked you. I'm sorry I let your cousins mock you without saying anything. That was wrong. I know, I said again. But you believe me now. And you're standing up for the company now. That's what matters. My mother had a different reaction. She was angry at me for 3 months. Genuinely angry. She said I destroyed the family. She said I should have handled it privately instead of making it public. She said I was a traitor for calling the police on my own brother. I listened to her. I didn't argue. I let her feel what she needed to feel. By month 4, she asked me to meet her for coffee. We sat at a quiet cafe, and she said something I'll never forget. I've been thinking about what you did. And I realized something. You didn't destroy this family. Ryan did. You just stopped him from destroying it further. I'm sorry I made you the villain for doing the right thing. Thank you, I said. I don't know if I can ever have a relationship with your brother again, she continued. But I can have a relationship with the daughter who loved this family enough to fight for it, and she did. We rebuilt our relationship slowly. And eventually, we built something stronger than we'd had before. I took over as CEO of Peterson Properties. Not as VP of Operations. As CEO. Complete authority. Complete control. The board voted unanimously. Even my cousins who'd sided with Ryan at Christmas, once they realized what he'd done, voted for me. Even my aunt who said of course he should have full control, once she understood that his control had been predicated on stealing from the company, voted for me. The first thing I did was implement new financial oversight systems. I hired a CFO with forensic accounting experience. I created a system where no single person could authorize large expenditures. I brought in external auditors. I made it impossible for anyone to do what Ryan had done. The second thing I did was conduct a 10-year financial audit. I needed to know if there were any other surprises. If there was any other theft or fraud or misappropriation that hadn't been discovered yet. There wasn't. Ryan's theft had been his alone. But there were inefficiencies. There were outdated systems. There were opportunities for improvement. The third thing I did was make it publicly clear, to employees, to clients, to vendors, to everyone, that any employee engaging in fraud would face criminal prosecution. I didn't want there to be any ambiguity about company values or expectations. The company stabilized. The company grew. Within 2 years, Peterson Properties was worth more than it had been in a decade. By year 5, we'd expanded into 3 new markets. We'd hired 50 new employees. We'd doubled our revenue. The company that my father had built, the company that my brother had been draining, was thriving again under honest leadership. But none of that mattered as much as the lesson I learned about boundaries and trust and the importance of documentation. The folder. That folder changed everything. Because when I set that folder on the Christmas dinner table, I wasn't just exposing my brother's crimes. I was proving that truth matters. That evidence matters. That it's not enough to say something, you have to be able to prove it. 2 years after Ryan's sentencing, I was having lunch with my mother. She'd been quiet for most of the past 2 years, processing the betrayal and the scandal and the fact that her son was in federal prison. Do you ever regret turning him in? She asked. No, I said immediately. Not for a second. Even though he's your brother? Because he's my brother, I said. He committed a serious crime. He stole from our father. He stole from me. He stole from the company. And when he got caught, instead of admitting what he'd done, he tried to gaslight everyone at Christmas dinner. He tried to pretend he was the victim. He tried to claim he was the rightful heir. I know, my mother said quietly. Being family doesn't give you the right to commit crimes, I continued. Being family doesn't mean I have to protect you when you steal. Being family means I love you enough to let you face the consequences of your choices. It means I care enough about truth to not participate in your lies." My mother nodded. She understood. I still think about that Christmas dinner sometimes. I think about how close I came to just letting it go. Just accepting that Ryan was taking over the company and I was being cut out. I think about all the reasons I could have stayed silent. Family loyalty. The desire to keep the peace. The fear of being labeled a whistleblower. The shame of having a criminal in the family. The hope that Ryan would somehow change or fix things on his own. But I didn't let it go. I gathered evidence. I hired a forensic accountant. I documented everything. I waited for the right moment to reveal the truth. And when Ryan stood up at Christmas dinner and tried to announce my exile, I was ready with the folder. The folder that changed everything. The folder that contained the truth. The folder that ensured that my brother would face consequences for his theft. I don't regret it. I will never regret it. Because protecting the company my father built was more important than protecting my brother's freedom. Because protecting our family's legacy was more important than protecting my brother's reputation. Because protecting myself was more important than maintaining a relationship with someone who wanted to destroy me. The lesson in this story is simple: document everything. Trust nobody. And when someone tries to steal from you, whether it's money or property or opportunity or dignity, don't let shame or family loyalty or the desire to keep the peace prevent you from fighting back. Fight back. Document. Prosecute. Move forward. That's what I did. And that's why Peterson Properties is still standing. That's why our father's legacy survived. That's why our family, though scarred, is still intact. All because I had the courage to set a folder on a Christmas dinner table and let the truth speak for itself. The end.